You're listening to the Sisters-in-Laws podcast, a faith-based podcast that spotlights Black women who replace silence with storytelling around pregnancy and infant loss and infertility. Black women experience miscarriage and stillbirth 4 to 5 times more likely than white women, according to the NIH and CDC. Whether you've experienced a miscarriage, infant loss, stillbirth, are trying to conceive, or have an infertility diagnosis, you will learn about resources and strategies to heal, gain clarity, peace, hope, and find an empowering path forward after loss. I'm your host, Erica M. McAfee, and you will hear me interview sisters-in-laws who have healed from such a painful and traumatic experience by sharing their testimonies and stories to inspire and help others turn their pain into their purpose. Now let's get started. Welcome, Amina, to the podcast.
Hello. Thank you so much.
I would love for you to share a little bit about yourself and what you do.
I'm 37 years old. I am currently working in higher education. I'm a supervisor of academic advising, and I've been doing that for the last 5 years. It's kind of higher ed kind of chose me type of a thing. What else? I'm married. I've been married to my husband, Teron. It will be 8 years in July, and we've been together for the last 17 years. It will be in July. So we've been at this for a really long time. Let's see, I have a really close-knit family. Mom and dad live like 5 minutes down the street from me. And I have 2 brothers. I have an older brother, James, and a twin brother, Armand. And again, we're just a really close-knit family. What else about me? I'm a writer. I sing when I'm not writing or when I'm not working in higher ed. It's always tough to introduce yourself, and to talk about who you are. But I think whenever you hear, whenever anybody gets to know who I am, it's ultimately to say that music is like my first love.
Yes, absolutely. But you have a story to tell, and I would love for you to just take us back on your journey to motherhood. Share with us your lost story, your infertility journey.
Yeah. So my journey is a difficult one. The journey to motherhood has definitely been incredibly difficult, with a bunch of turns and a lot of disappointment, but it's a testimony of faith for sure. I just wanted to just begin. My husband and I, we began to actively trying to conceive back in 2015. And from 2015 to 2016, I suffered several early miscarriages, maybe around, I think at that point, because kind of sometimes time gets away when you're counting up those losses. And when they're that early, it's very easy to think about, okay, well, we can always just try again. You don't really, I won't say that you put a lot of stock into the early ones. Like when I'm saying early, I speak about like from 6 weeks to 8 weeks to 9 weeks. So really kind of early in, but definitely they still have that impact because there's that, there's that sense of loss and that sense of disappointment. But finally, though, in May 2017, we got pregnant with our son, Carver. And this particular pregnancy was super perfect. I didn't have any morning sickness, no giant mood swings. Like I'm a Gemini, so my mood swings are always going to be there. But I think for that particular pregnancy, it was very easy, just kind of eating. Like that was it. It was just eating and sleeping and all the good cravings, right? So as we progressed through that pregnancy, everything, was looking good. He was measuring well. I was measuring well in terms of like weight and stuff. We're always concerned about how much weight we're putting on during the pregnancy, but everything was wonderful. And then in summer, I'm sorry, not summer, but September 2017, We went for a routine sonogram. And during that visit, I had been experiencing some pressure and just some spotting. And so they were asking, the techs and the nurses are, asking me, are you okay? Just kind of going through the routine sonogram, taking pictures of our baby boy and everything. And so as I was explaining the pressure that I was feeling, you could just kind of feel the energy in the room kind of shift, like the concern kind of came out of the tech, and she's like showing me everything. And basically, as soon as she kind of panned the area where you could see the cervix, she's like, okay, I want you guys to, just drop everything and go to the hospital immediately. Don't go home. Don't stop to get anything to eat. Just go. And so at that point, the tone in the room, we could tell that there was something to be concerned about, but it wasn't to the effect that we, knew something was wrong immediately. It was just, okay, let's go get looked at the hospital. So we drove to Holy Cross Hospital in Silver Spring, and it was there that got a little bit more monitoring done, more sonograms taken. And we were told then, when we got there, got checked in and everything, that I was dilated 6 centimeters, and that there was a chance that our son would not make it. Like, so they did let us know what was going on just in terms of the dilation. And it was crazy because we were just going through like normal, like one day everything is good. And then within those first moments of that routine sonogram, it's like, okay, what's going on? Like something is not right. But other than that pressure, other than that spotting, which I was feeling like, just normal things, because the doctors would tell me, oh, don't worry. Women spot through, pregnancy all the time. There shouldn't be any worries, but just monitor it, see if, the flow picks up, but it never did. So I never really was concerned too much about it. But when they told us, that we were 6 centimeters, we basically had to just kind of prepare for the worst. And I mean, they spoke to us about um, what I know now to be an emergency cerclage. Like when I first got into that situation, I had no idea what they were saying. It was almost like they were speaking a whole different language. And I'm like, I don't know what this is, despite the fact that at that time, I'm in my 30s, and I think a common misconception about medical field, and no disrespect to any doctors, nurses, sonotechs, anything like that, but I think when women come in and they're not as knowledgeable of those terms like emergency cerclage, just a lot of things that were just kind of foreign to me, I'm just like, wait, I don't know what's going on, everybody slow down. And it was just so rapid, like everything was just coming at us so quickly that it really was not time to process too much. But to make a long story short about this instance, I was in labor and didn't know it, you know what I mean? And so the plan immediately was to keep me in the hospital for at least 3 more weeks. At this point of the pregnancy, I was at 21 weeks and 4 days. And then the next day, September the 30th, 2017, my water broke just out of the blue. Contractions had started to pick up throughout because I stayed at Holy Cross overnight. But through that time, I just felt them kind of progressing. And so we were really, as much as we could do, we were just preparing for him to come at any moment. But the plan was absolutely to kind of try to keep us. I think the goal at that point was about 24, 25 weeks. They wanted to see if they could keep us to that point. But that day, my water broke and I ended up delivering Carver Joseph Nicholas. When he was born, like he never cried. He was really already gone, when we brought him in to the world, or when I brought him into the world. And so like the room was just completely quiet, and I was just afraid, just kind of knowing that that was the end. It was very it was very traumatic. It was very um, kind of surreal in a way that you kind of wait for something to happen. You just wait for that little tiny breath to come out. You wait to hear the little cry or what have you, but there was nothing. And I just kind of knew, it was just like, oh my gosh, and it really did, shake me to the core. And it's definitely something that I had never dealt with just because, yes, I had been pregnant before, right? But I had never gotten to a point where I actually had a tangible baby that I could look at and could clearly see, facial features and could clearly, feel he had a little bit of weight to him, he's a pound and a half. And so it was just like, oh, okay, he's kind of hefty, for being so early. But, just kind of trying to wrap my head around the fact that he's here, but he's not here, And so it was after that point, that instance, that my doctor had said the words incompetent cervix. And to be honest, like just going back to those terms that I've never heard, emergency cerclage, incompetent cervix, none of those things were, familiar to me. And so I'm just like, what does that mean? I had never heard of it, didn't understand, or didn't know what to do about it. How do you fix it? Because when you find out something just isn't right within, you try to go into kind of, I guess, repair mode. Like, what do I need to do? Just being proactive and trying to be preventative. Like, what do we do about this? And so after this loss, which was much more difficult again than my previous miscarriages, because, Carver was 5 months along, I went into this very deep depression, nothing like I had ever felt, because things happen in life and we're knocked down and, we cry about things, but you're able to kind of shake back and, just move about your daily life. But for this, this instance, it was just very, very difficult. I did cry every single day. I wouldn't eat anything. I couldn't sleep. I just, and the biggest part in terms of just being kind of feeling stuck, I just stopped going to church because, like, at that time, pre-pandemic, we're always I'm always in church. Anybody that knows Amina, like, I'm there every Sunday. I'm there when whenever the doors are open, like, let's go, because singing is my whole life. And for this, or when this did happen, like, I just didn't feel like doing any of that. I just felt like, what was the point? Because honestly, when I first found out that I was pregnant with Carver, it was, okay, God, it's you and me and baby. Like, let's, let me pray every day. Because, things in life, we get busy. We know, especially if you're in faith and you're living in faith, that it's important to maintain that relationship with God and maintain, your prayer life and maintain your scripture reading as much as you can. And so for me, it was, okay, this is a time for me to really, really focus and really pray. And I'm just like, Lord, just let us be okay. Let me be strong enough, to carry the baby. Let me be, strong enough to, go about this and be healthy. And so after the loss, it was just like, oh my God, like, what do I do? I just felt very stuck. I just felt in a place where nobody could, like, there was no one that could kind of get me out of that. And once we began, we got cleared or what have you to begin trying again, um, I I was going in like, okay, I guess I'm ready, because you didn't really, you don't acknowledge all the pain and all the hurt, like, especially when it's kind of the first time of something very traumatic happening to you. It's kind of like you're on autopilot. And I felt like that's a lot of time where I was. I just kind of coasted, took time off from work to kind of bounce back. And, while I was off, I just kind of sat around. And then when, I would go back for the postpartum checkup to make sure everything was okay, they're like, okay, you got the green light. You guys can, move forward as you will. And so for me, I was just like, okay, let's go. let's try it again. And so once we were cleared to begin trying after Carver, I suffered two more early miscarriages. And then after those, we finally, made the decision to go to Shady Grove Fertility to have all kinds of tests run just to make sure everything was in order, everything was working properly or what have you. So while we were starting that process, I had something called I'm going to try to say it, a hysterosalpingogram procedure. I had two of those, or HSG procedures. And what they do, I know maybe your audience is familiar with them, but what those hysterosalpingogram procedures do is essentially kind of flush out your tubes to make sure that there are not any blockages or nothing that will, prevent you from or prevent everything from reaching your potential egg. So again, just learning about all of these procedures was something brand new to me. Not really painful, just really weird. You know what I mean? Like really strange sensation or what have you. And so I had two of those. And I'm like, oh, this is new. Like, let's see what's going on. And so after those, we began talking with the doctor that we worked with, Dr. Matla at Shady Grove Fertility, who's amazing. We started talking with him about doing IUI versus IVF. And 6 months later, like we were talking about it, just talking about payment, talking about what the process was going to look like or what have you. And then 6 months later, in December 2019, I just got those two pink lines that we all look for when we're on this journey, and it was completely spontaneous. So we had not even begun the process of IUI or anything. It was just like, surprise, here we go. And so once I found out I was pregnant in December 2019, I was ordered to come back to Shady Grove for a sono. And when we got there, we were informed that there was nothing there, like they couldn't find anything in the uterus or what have you. But despite the fact that they said that there was nothing there, my HCG levels just continued to pick up and they continued to increase. And so after about a week after that appointment, it was now like January 2020 at this point. I just started to experience like such pain, like it was just super excruciating pain. It's just kind of, think about your worst menstrual cramps that you could ever have. I know that there's really not a way to explain like what kind of hurt we go through, but just experiencing that pain was a lot. And so we kept going, back and forth to the doctor, and they finally pointed out that it was an ectopic pregnancy. So when they told me that it was an ectopic pregnancy, they gave me shots that would essentially eliminate the pregnancy or just kind of shrink everything down so that we could, so I could kind of pass it, get back to normal, what have you. But after the first two rounds of the shot, because you get two shots, maybe about a week apart or something, a couple of days apart. But it was weird because my HCG just kept on, it was still high. It would never decrease, and I was still kind of in pain at that point. And so January the 11th of 2020, I had a follow-up appointment with Shady Grove, and was ordered to go back to the same hospital I had lost Carver in to have an emergency surgery to have my right tube removed, just because the pregnancy, they would search the uterus and they're like, we can't find anything. And I'm like, I know, something is there because I'm in this pain. And finally, when we went back for that final checkup, the doctor's like, I see it. Like, it was a different doctor at this point, but she kind of was going around with that the sono, the little scope or what have you. And she's like, I see it. Like, let's get you to the Holy Cross immediately. And with that, of course, again, I'm just like, oh God, like, what now? And this was on a Sunday when they told us to go back to Holy Cross for the surgery. And so for me, I'm just crying. Me and my husband were just kind of sitting in the room and waiting in the exam room to get everything drawn up, orders drawn up to get me over to Holy Cross. And it was just, it just felt like it felt like deja vu, really. It was just like, oh my God, the tragic irony of having to go back to where we lost our carver. It was just really just kind of just real traumatic, really really scary, really nerve-wracking. After we went there, everything was kind of quick. I hate the pun cut and dry, but it really was kind of in and out. And I was very nervous. I'm very nervous about surgeries and anesthesia and things like that. So I'm just praying the whole time. My family dropped everything, met us at the hospital, and we got everything taken care of. And I just remember waking up from the anesthesia, and the doctor kind of showed me what the tube looked like. And I was still kind of out of it, still very groggy. But he's like, look, it was, this is it. And I'm just like, oh my gosh, like there's nothing that can prepare you for knowing that, ectopics can go very bad, things can go very much awry. So I was, very grateful that we were able to catch it when we did, because it could have went another way. And I was just very grateful that the doctors, continued to work with us and continue to listen to us to say, hey, yes, I got these shots to take care of this, but something isn't right. And so it was I was very grateful to be able to come out of it, one tube down, but I was living. And so that was the important part of that, was just like, okay, let's regroup as much as I can, and then go forward. So after all of that, I was just really drained, still reeling from losing my carver, and now I just had to add this other experience to the list, right? And so moving forward from there, about 4 months later, like May 2020-ish, and then I believe it was April that we found out that we did it again. We were just pregnant spontaneously, and this time we were pregnant with twins. And so it was a major shock. We were back at Shady Grove, just because we had been working with them. Not necessarily for any kind of treatments or anything, but it was, they were always the ones that we were going to be working with, because the plan always was for IUI, and we would go from there. But even now, it was like, hey, we're back. We did it. We didn't even need like additional help. So when we got in there, Dr. Montla's like giving me the sono, and he says, oh, there are two of them. And I was just like, wait, what? So the shock of it, to know that there were two babies, I was just very excited, but at the same time, very cautious, just because we had been going through a lot of, just a lot of loss. And so it's always, whenever we do get that positive, whenever we get those two lines, whenever we get that plus sign, it's just like, okay, yes, I'm excited, but let me come into this with a little bit more caution, or what have you. So it was a big shock. We were, they always told us when we found out that there were twins there, that there was a possibility that we would just keep our eye on the growth of both of them. So they always prepped us for maybe not the worst, but the good news, bad news kind of situation, because there is always a chance where one baby could develop more than the other. And so we pretty much knew what the picture would look like going in. So we did not go into this super duper excited in the beginning. It was just like, okay, we'll just keep, on the side of caution for now. So within the first few weeks of that pregnancy with the twins, we discussed a TVC, or a transvaginal cerclage, to keep my cervix intact. And this was something that we prepared for after losing Carver. So we just went back to revisiting this conversation. And at that point, they would normally do a TVC, or transvaginal cerclage, between the weeks of 10 and 13 or 14, I believe it is. So I went in, I believe I was at 10 weeks when I went in for the transvaginal cerclage. Real, strange procedure, especially when you're not, when you're just not used to it. You just think that, your pregnancies are going to go well and you don't have to think about these kinds of procedures. But I was awake the entire time, just under really heavy anesthesia, really like a epidural type anesthesia where you're kind of numb from the waist down, but I was awake. I was present. The staff was very, present and wonderful. Very wonderful staff and supportive. So they kind of talked me through everything, and just hearing all the stuff. It was very new and very different. But I'm like, I have to do what I have to do, to make sure, that they're okay, and they last. But unfortunately, we did lose twin B. Um, and that was when I went in. Well, I had lost twin B before I went in for the transvaginal cerclage. We lost twin B 8 weeks. But then twin A, he just kept getting stronger by the day. We had the TVC placed in July 2020, and everything was smooth sailing for him until it wasn't, and we went into the ER at 18 weeks and 3 days with spotting and contractions. And I was told that I was funneling and had about zero 0.5 millimeters of cervix left, and we pleaded with our doctors, for some kind of shot or just anything that could slow down the contractions, slow down the labor. But we were essentially sent home, and I was placed on bed rest and just kind of told, the only thing you can do at this point is pray. And it's I know that doctors, they have to be objective. They can't be super emotional. But when you're just, when you get this, news that, oh, you're funneling, literally, Erica, I was just like, what does that mean? So while I'm waiting for the sonotech, to come back with the report, or to bring me to my doctor so they could let me know what's what, I heard the tech speaking with someone, and I just heard funneling. And so immediately I'm just Googling, and I'm Queen Google. Like, if something is happening to me, I'm just like, what is this? And don't do that, because it'll give you panic attacks. But when I'm Googling, I'm just like, oh my God, like this can't be good. So we got, they explained to us what was happening. Essentially, even though the transvaginal cerclage was in place at the bottom of the cervix, the funneling started to happen from the top down. So it was almost like a zipper effect, sort of, if we're thinking about what that visual looks like. But essentially, they're just like, well, there's really not much we can do. We just, need you to go home, be on bed rest, don't get up, like not even to go to the bathroom, don't get up. So it's bedpan life. It's, don't move, don't do anything. And so for the 3 days, I camped out on the couch, and 3 days later, we rushed back to the hospital because the contractions were just coming harder and harder. And neither of my doctors were on call this day. So an unfamiliar face was talking to me about next steps, throwing around all these terms that I was unfamiliar with. Yet again, it was just all these new terms that I wasn't familiar with. And finally, she just mentioned a rescue cerclage. This, in addition to the existing TVC, was to be done. But when she went to check my cervix, my water broke, and I just immediately started crying because I knew it was too early for the baby. Like, it was, at this point, we were 18 weeks, 6 days, and it was just, they told us essentially same situation that happened at Holy Cross. It's like the plan is, we've got to get you, to 24, 25 weeks. At this point, I was at Anne Arundel Medical Center, but they're just like, we want to try and keep you. We want to try and get this emergency cerclage done, in addition to the existing TVC. But the water just broke, and I had to deliver our baby. So now, after the water broke, I have several doctors, none of which are my doctors. So just imagine that stress. They're trying to cut the transvaginal cerclage. That's basically what will happen is that your doctors will go in, they'll snip the threading, and it's heavy duty. It's like it almost sounds like steel being cut, so it's this, it's all these random, and they were friendly, don't get me wrong, like the staff was fine, but when they're not your doctors, when you're not familiar with the people, and you're in a stressful situation and under duress, it's very, very trying. So while they're trying to cut this TBC so I can deliver, all I can just remember is just the sounds of instruments, just clinging, voices, hands, all, and the unmistakable sound again of medical sutures being cut. It's just, it's a weird sound. And if you know it, you know what I mean. But after, they finally removed the stitches, I pushed our son, into the world, and he was not breathing. With my husband by my side, we were just back in the awful place of grief. And I'm just thinking to myself, just not again. After giving birth to our son, Malcolm Hassan, I was rushed into the OR for a D&C just to ensure, and I can't think of D&C, I think it's like dilation and cutterage or something like that, just to ensure that the placenta had been pushed out completely. But after that, I was awake during that procedure. And although, I was medicated, epidural, they tried to give me some additional meds. But for me, I was just like, no, I just want to be alert. I just want to know what's happening. And it was just very traumatic just to kind of, be in this place again and to think about, oh my gosh, like we almost got to the halfway point with our son, and we're back in this place again. And I just, sobbed the entire time I was in for that procedure. And once I got out of that OR and was reunited with my husband, Teron, I lost it. Like I just screamed and cried. And, he was very, my husband is very attentive. He was very proactive and determined. And he just began immediately just researching what's called the TAC, or the Transabdominal Cerclage. And soon after, we got out of the hospital, it was kind of a joint effort. He's just like, we've got to see what else we can do. And I really do applaud my husband for being the strongest person I've ever seen, right, during this situation, because I know that as hard as it is and was right on me, to lose our son, I know that it had to be, equally devastating to him. And it was just really great to see this sense of determination, like we got to do what we can to make sure that we're not in this situation again. Like we don't have to go through this if we don't, if we make sure that we're taking all the right measures. And so we started just researching the TACs, figuring out what it was. And while we were doing that, it's very interesting that my older brother, who now lives in Dallas, he just texted me like every day just to make sure I was okay. Family was present. Everybody was there for us, and absolutely gave us the support that we needed, but also the space that we needed, because it was a very different kind of grief. Because even where losing Carver was very, very fast, very immediate, and very unexpected, for the loss of Malcolm, it was a little bit heavier because of the fact that we had done, presumably everything we thought was the right thing to do in terms of getting the TVC done, and still losing him was just like, oh my God, like we've done everything right and we still had to deal with this. But my older brother reached out to me and was like, hey, like I saw this episode of 30 for 30, this ESPN documentary series. And I cannot remember the football player at this point, but he and his wife essentially went through the same situation that Teron and I did, just multiple losses. And his wife had decided, they started looking into the transabdominal cerclage. So he was like, did you ever think about, this? Did you ever think about, maybe, trying this out? And so I told him, I was like, it's very interesting that you say that because we're Googling and researching everything now. And so basically everybody was on board to just say, look, we think this might be a good idea. Like, let's try and figure out what has to happen. So in November 2020, we consulted with two doctors who specialized in TAC placement. And in March 2021, I had the procedure done at Mercy Medical Center in Baltimore, Maryland, with a Dr. M. He was amazing. Everyone, just spoke to us about what the procedure would look like. Dr. M and Dr. Atlas in Baltimore. If anyone is, thinking about a TAC placement, definitely have that consult with both of those doctors. They're amazing. So I got that procedure done March 1st, 2021. And while at this point we're cleared to begin trying, it took we were in recovery essentially for 4 weeks after that procedure. You're put under, and essentially the transabdominal is essentially the same idea as the transvaginal, but the TAC goes a little higher up on the cervix. So it's almost like a rubber band around the cervix so that it does prevent, or it is supposed to prevent, funneling, which is what we encountered with the loss of Malcolm. But I got that done in March, and we've since been cleared to start trying again. And so right now, while we don't have any news to share at this point, we're definitely hopeful for the possibility of experiencing complete parenthood. And, we remember our children, and I was really trying to get through it without crying, but we do remember our children. We speak of them often. We have memory boxes with their belongings in them. We have their fingerprints, their handprints, footprints, little hats and blankets and things like that. So we have those things in two separate boxes, and it is very difficult. Some days are, worse than others. But when I think about my sons, I feel all the joy in the world to just know that I was blessed, right? That we were blessed to at least carry them and to feel them and to, be able to speak to them and pour love into them even while they were growing. And so, while it's very painful that we've gotten to kind of over the halfway point with Carver and near to the halfway point with Malcolm, it hurt, right, to think about who they could be, right, at this point, who they would look like. Although both my sons were the spitting image of my husband. It's so funny. I often like to joke that I did all this work with these baby boys, and they didn't look a thing like me. But I'm very grateful, right, to cherish their memories. And we named our son Carver Joseph Nicholas Lively. And Carver's name, his father chose Carver because he felt that he would essentially carve the path or the way, for the rest of his brothers and or sisters. At this point, we think about him almost, I don't want to say as a sacrifice, yeah, but yeah, just definitely carving out that path for our future, children, if we will have any more. And then Malcolm Hassan, we decided to name him Malcolm after Malcolm X, of course, who is one of my heroes. So we've whenever we choose names, we want to do so. We want to give them names with meaning. We want to, give them names with purpose and things like that. So we're very grateful. Even though this road has been extremely difficult, we are grateful that we've, had the chance to grow them and to love them as we were able to. And honestly, the tragedy of it has brought us, so much closer together, because marriages, People say, oh, marriage is hard work, marriage is this, marriage is that. Marriage is work, right? But when you throw tragedy into the mix, when you lose children, it's very difficult to know, what will happen between the dynamic of the two of you. But for us, it's just been that we've just held on to each other. We very much, rely on each other for strength. And, it's this situation after losing Malcolm, I decided that I was not going to retreat into my feelings, right, and be, just in that stuck space that I was at with Carver. I was intentional about just staying in my word, reading Bible plans that align with loss of children, with miscarriage, things like that. Just trying to make sure that my faith stays intact, because it is a stressful situation and it does kind of shake your faith up, where you don't feel like praying, you don't feel like singing if you're me and that's all you do. You know what I mean? You don't feel like doing the things that bring you joy. But shortly after you've kind of sat in this, hurt and pain, and you've cried, and you've asked the why, and what can I do, or what could I have done differently? Once you kind of get through that, you start to feel a little bit lighter. There are days that I feel like I'm back to my old self, but there are also, days where I feel like, okay, I don't want to be bothered. I want to be left alone. But in addition to just praying and staying kind of aligned with the word of God, even if that means just listening to your favorite, gospel songs, or even just your favorite songs, because music is very much a giant part of my life. And when I don't feel like myself, when I feel like I'm just lost in this grief, I'll turn on music and I'm like, okay, let me just get lost in something. Right. And then, you get to those, particular songs that just kind of pull you out. And I just encourage anybody that, is going through, any woman that's going through, or any family that's going through that, yes, it does hurt, and you'll be sad, 3 days out of the 7, within the week, or 7 out of 7. But, if you can find that thing that brings you that joy, grab onto that, find, some kind of hobby. For me, I got back to writing. I'm finding my way back to it. I'm not as disciplined as I should be with it, but I'm finding my way back to it. And another just helpful tip is just find you a therapist. Through this entire situation from 2015 all the way up until now, I had seen two therapists that at first I was just like, okay, I'm not really ready for this, but I'm going to go, right? Because I knew that if I didn't go, I was going to continue to be in this fog, be, this mad, angry, woman, and withdrawn, which is totally not me, but I was very, very withdrawn. And I was like, okay, I know I can't stay here. So let me at least try to find somebody that I can talk to. So during that whole, I think it was from maybe 2015 to 2017, I had found two therapists that essentially just kind of fell off the face of the earth. I never talked to them again, and I didn't know what happened. So it's just like, oh my gosh, what now? And so now I have this new therapist that I've been working with from, when did I start talking to her? February 2020. And she's just been a lifesaver. She encouraged me to create memory boxes, right, for Carver. And she actually brought me, for Mother's Day, she brought me an empty box. And this was when, COVID first hit. So it was just like, hey girl, I'm gonna throw this on your porch, do, this special project with this box, just put all of his belongings in it, just make it special. And I did that, I built that memory box for him. And so just knowing that we have those things to go back to remember Carver. And then we have the special box to remember Malcolm, even though it's one of those things where I'll just go to it every now and again. It's not a practice that I do very often because it still hurts very much. But if you find that therapist that really clicks with you and they bring out the best, even the worst things, if they just kind of, if they're invested in your well-being, in your soul, so to speak, just because your emotions are definitely tied to the soul. So you just got to do the work, and that sounds cliche. We hear people like Iyanla say, are you doing the work? Are you doing the work? But it really is, a work in progress to just mend your heart and get your soul back on, on track, and to get your mind back in a space where you're really ready to try again, because this journey to motherhood is for me, it's very trying, but I've not given up. I believe that even if, my journey to motherhood, or my, motherhood experience is just to say, I have these 8 angel babies, that I can go back to, with the 2 of them being my tangible sons, you know what I mean? Um, the 2 that I'm able, that was able to see and able to name, I think that just knowing that I'm their mother, if that's all this is at the end of it, right, then I'm still grateful to at least have had the experience, to know that I could do it, and to know that they are loved and will be loved, until I leave the earth. And, it's just, it's trying, and it really does make you, just rely a little heavier on your faith, and to really, really just pull that strength from somewhere. And I promise you, for me, it is absolutely, absolutely the Lord that just kind of keeps me, together, and keeps me from day to day. It's just like, it's God, it's my husband, it's my family, and my church family is outstanding. They're like family. I've been going to my church since I was 10 years old. So we are all family. And everybody just kind of rallies around us, prays for us, and we're super grateful and appreciative. And so if at one point we're able to bring a baby into the world fully, complete 40 weeks, 41 weeks, whatever it might look like, if we're able to do it, I'll be super grateful. But even if we are not, I am so thankful, right, to just have the memory of my sons, to share with my family and to share with my husband. I think that, that's an amazing thing. So I just, I don't really have much more to say to that, but I do just want to impart to anybody that's going through, I've been through this thing, 8 times, and it doesn't get easier, with every time. But I just want to keep anyone encouraged, like just hold on, to your faith when you feel like, you don't have anything left. Just, and you're at the end of your rope, just tie a knot in it and hold on. That's it. That's all I can say is just be encouraged. And I'm hopeful that my story can help somebody else, because when I was going through, I didn't know about this community of people. I didn't know about, the Incompetent Cervix crew. You know what I mean? Like, I didn't know about the Cerclage folks, like all this new stuff. And so I'm grateful, right, for social media too, because you get to see other people's testimonies, as it were. You get to hear about other people's experiences. So I'm just grateful that I've had an opportunity to share, hopefully encourage somebody's heart that even though it may look bad, it may look like the journey is, fruitless, but if you hold on just to that little tiny mustard seed of faith, the grain of a mustard seed, not even the actual seed, right? But the grain of that, how tiny that is. That's all you need, right? And so I just want to keep anybody encouraged that's going through. And Erica, I definitely just want to thank you, for the time. Thank you for letting me share, my experience. And I'm hopeful that I'll be able to just encourage somebody as we go through. And so baby dust, right, to everybody that
Yes,
is praying for
absolutely.
that. So thank you so much.
You are so welcome. You have already wrapped everything up. Where can our listeners connect with you after this episode?
I'm on Instagram, and it's so funny as I'm going to Instagram so I can make sure that I'm giving you my correct handle. So they can find me on Instagram, IG, or Instagram.com/queen_Amina. And I've got a new venture in place. It's under construction, but if you guys come with me, I promise you'll see something real soon. And we're waiting on God, to give me the full direction. But Queen_Amina, and also on Instagram, at sign paperback. So PAPERBAK books, BOOKS. So at paperbackbooks.com. That's Instagram, at sign paperback books, and Instagram at Queen_Amina. You can find me there. You can also find me on Facebook, Amina.Lively, Lively. If you want to connect, if you need me to pray, if you need, if you need a push, you need that special support, I got you.
Thank you so much, Amina, for sharing your story and your light with us. I
Thank
know
you,
that
Erica.
someone will be blessed by, your testimony for sure. And we are gonna be following you on your journey and
Excellent.
you
Excellent.
navigating. Absolutely.
Excellent. Thank you. I will keep you guys posted. Fingers crossed this TAC does what it needs to do. You guys will be among the first to hear the good news. And I'm so thankful for the opportunity, and definitely keep your eyes open for new ventures. I'm stepping out on faith on something. And so hopefully you get to see those things at work very soon.
Perfect. All right. Well, thank you so much.
Of course.
You
Of
have a
course.
good one.
Thank you so much.
Thank you for listening to today's episode. For show notes, go to sistersinloss.com. To stay connected with us and join the Sisters in Loss community and receive my weekly newsletter, please go to sistersinloss.com/newsletter. That is sistersinloss.com/newsletter. Please rate and review this episode, and I will talk to you next week.